Hi, this is Dr. Anna, and as you know, we use these segments to talk about your questions about trauma and recovery. So please subscribe to the YouTube channel and like the videos that are useful for you so we know what's making a difference. And let's keep the conversation going forward. And today, I've been talking to a lot of people in my practice, but I've also gotten a lot of posts about relationships after trauma. And one of the big questions was, do I still have to deal with trauma in every one of my relationships? Why do I feel like trauma is ruining all of my relationships? We're really lucky today because we have Dr. Muller, who is the author of Trauma and the Avoidant Client. It's a fabulous book, and it really is focused on this kind of idea as well, the impact of trauma on your relationships over time. So what I want to do actually is invite Dr. Muller to come and talk with us about this question. And what I want to do is really ask the question, what do you do after trauma when you feel that your relationships continue to be impacted, and why does that really happen? So maybe Dr. Muller will come and talk with us. Hi. Thank you so much for joining us.
Sure.
And I guess, this really is such a huge issue, and I know it's something that you cover in your book because relationships get so impacted after trauma.
Yeah.
And people really don't understand what they need to do and why it is that their relationships are being destroyed. And I've seen it so many times in my practice, and I know that you have as well. So what do you say? I mean, because you've got a whole theory that goes along with this. What do you say when you're working with clients who pose that question? What do they do when their relationships are being destroyed after trauma?
So there are a couple things that are really important. The first thing I think is the issue of safety. If you don't feel safe in a relationship, if you don't feel that the person is trustworthy, if you really even struggle with knowing how to trust, that can be a huge factor in trauma. If your gut emotionally is telling you that this relationship really isn't a safe one, and that sometimes is actually hard to even figure out.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing that you're saying, because that whole issue of safety, sometimes our alarm bells go off, and really there's no danger going on, and we need to test the mechanism of that danger alarm system.
Exactly.
So that is a beautiful thing to recognize.
But one of the challenges in trauma, though, is actually having trouble with recognizing what's safe and what isn't.
What is and what isn't.
That's one of the things that's a challenge. And so I think another piece that I think is really important is seeking psychotherapy or counseling, because that's one of the things that a good therapist can actually help you with, is being able to start to recognize what is happening in my body that actually is an alarm bell. What kind of signs are there that I'm actually not feeling that this is a safe relationship. That's actually more complicated than it sounds at first. It's the kind of thing that we think, well, of course, we would all know that, but not necessarily. And in trauma, what happens is, if people, especially if they've had any kind of abuse in their life, if it's that kind of trauma, sometimes it's hard to even know what safety is, because you've been told things in a sense that aren't true. You've been told to keep secrets, or you've been told you should enjoy this even though you don't, and that can be actually confusing for people.
Yeah, that relationship, the therapeutic relationship, acts as almost a testing mechanism so that you can know. And I love the fact that you recognize this whole piece around the body, because one of the pieces of work that we always look at is that stabilization component, because when we're not reactive at the start, we have a better capacity to pay attention to the truth within inside of ourselves, and that gets missed when we're already in a ignited and reactive state.
Exactly.
So that therapeutic relationship is a wonderful testing place. So I think that's wonderful. Go and find great help so that you can actually see what's true and what isn't true. Great, fantastic.
Okay, for sure.
Any other pieces?
I think the other piece is, and this is tricky, is knowing when to open up. it's one thing to say that you want to seek counseling. It's hard sometimes to know when to open up, and sometimes people feel in both directions. Sometimes people feel pressure to open up before they're ready, and that's something to pay attention to. If you're actually not feeling ready, not to feel pressured. On the other hand, sometimes people sort of never open up, and that's also tricky because, in a sense, unless you do find a good relationship, and that can be really tricky. You know, what is a good relationship that where you can trust the person and feel good enough to be able to open up? But at some point, finding the opportunity to be able to open up is a really important piece. It's really hard to take care of the effects of trauma totally on your own. And that's one of the things that sometimes happens to people is they learn, in life, if there's going to be anybody I can trust, it's going to only be myself.
Right. It's a very lonely reality.
It's a very lonely, and it works for a time, but it's, as you say, a lonely, and it also doesn't solve a lot of other issues relating to the interpersonal aspects of trauma, which you actually have to, in a sense, experience better relationships with other people to be able to get over. So that whole idea of opening up is something that I think is a really important one. Finding a good relationship where you can open up and doing it in a way that feels safe, I think, is one of the ways that I think people recover from trauma.
It's such a profound piece. I mean, most people who have been studying psychology for a long time have at least come across this one interesting study. It's this monkey study that was done so many years ago around attachment, right? It's a classic, right? So, there's a cage and there's a monkey, and the monkey is in a cage a very, very young age, and they fail to thrive when they don't have some kind of contact comfort. And we aren't a whole lot different than that. So if we don't have that sense of human communication, connection, because we are wired for that, and we thrive when we have that sense of connection with other people, and when we don't have it, we tend to fail to thrive. So in this study, the monkeys were actually doing very badly. They were actually becoming very ill when they didn't have that contact comfort. And just adding a wire monkey with a cloth covering changed the dynamic. The monkeys tended to thrive better. Oh my goodness, it's just an unbelievable idea that we are so in need of that human connection. So let's recap. First, safety. Make sure that you know that there's some kind of safety and you have a mechanism for testing that. Learn how to try out what is safe for you in a therapeutic relationship. And that doesn't mean that you're going to create a personal relationship with the therapist, but you start to understand the boundaries of that. And then allow yourself to recognize the importance of connection, and that this is going to be part of your healing as well. And I just want to thank you, Dr. Muller, for joining us. And remember, this is an amazing book that can help us understand more about trauma and working with avoidance. Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, yeah.
Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel and keep the conversation about post-traumatic growth and recovery moving forward. Have a question? Post or email us, and we will be happy to continue this conversation with you.